All right. So, in the media today, a statement came out from Dana White in reference to the recent altercation that took place between him and his wife there in Mexico. And actually, essentially beforehand, over this week, we had the Women's Caucus of California uh, basically speak out to have him removed from his position in his company with the UFC. For those who don't know, going back even farther, roughly, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, it was over New Year's, Mr. White had an altercation with his wife at a club in Mexico, which she struck him, and he struck her back 2 times from what we see on the camera. And a lot of people, because of the altercation, said that he should be removed from his platform. He came out today, or at least the video has been circulating today, where he made the statement saying that basically his having the incident publicized and dealing with the repercussions of that socially are punishment enough that there really isn't any further damage that could be done from something like a suspension. And he makes the argument that basically suspending him from the UFC in his position would do more damage than good for the company, the employees of the company, and essentially the business as a whole. And that may be true. But I want to take this moment to point out how hypocritical it is for this man to be vilified in this way. Because on the video, we obviously saw that his wife struck him first. If there was more footage to be had where something had happened before that, we should be able to see that. But from the footage that we've seen, they were having a disagreement, potentially, verbally, and it was only escalated to violence whenever his wife decided to do so. So, of course, as a man in society, I do understand that when it comes to violence, men have to have a certain level of restraint in general. But we have gotten to a place in society where people of all different types of race or gender or ethnic background, religious sexuality, all different types of people essentially utilize this fact against men in order to paint a narrative in these kind of circumstances specifically that vilifies them and almost justifies their use or excuses and enables their use of force on men. In layman's terms, she slapped him first. Why is he the only one receiving backlash in the media for it? I mean, all of the articles that came across my site were titled, domestic violence or that Dana White had struck his wife. I didn't see any titled altercation between Dana White and his wife in which they both assaulted each other. And you definitely didn't see anything that said Dana White's wife assaulted him and then he defended himself. Is that the reality of this situation? I don't know, and I don't care, at least not in their personal situation, because I believe that these kind of situations are something that should be handled internally. I'm going to go into some stuff that is not necessarily politically correct here, but I do believe that abusive relationships are bad, and I would like them to not happen, but I don't necessarily know how much we can do to intervene in these kind of relationships. Because you choose who you be with. You choose who who you're with for the most part. And if there's ever a time where you don't get to choose, then that's something that could be addressed. But as long as you have chosen your mate, whatever level you take it to, marriage, making children with each other, you are now responsible for the circumstance. You're not responsible for somebody else's actions, but you are responsible for your dealings, your endeavors with any person. So, in this case, specifically in situations where it's toxic, for lack of a better term, meaning arguments and propensity for violence from both sides, I don't really care. I'm not going to take sides. Like, I care as in I wish it wasn't happening, but I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to try and find out who's the victim and who's the abuser. I don't care about any of that stuff. You guys chose each other. You should deal with that. That's my thoughts and my opinions on anybody's relationship, especially if you have kids. If you decide to have a child with somebody, I don't care if they turn into a psycho killer the next week. I'm not saying that you have to live with them or anything like that, but that's who you chose. Now, granted, there are certain circumstances that are life-altering and can change you as a human being that we all could never be fully prepared for. Things like car accidents that cause brain damage, any type of accident, any type of disease that causes a mental decline or physical decline. These are all things that we necessarily can't be fully prepared for, as in we don't know when or where it's going to happen or to who it will happen to, but we can prepare as in knowing that it's a possibility. Meaning, when you date somebody, date them with the intention and understanding that that person could become a vegetable somewhere during the course of your relationship. If that is too much for you, you have to assess that. And I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong in that regard. I know, some people maybe would think that they can handle taking care of a disabled partner and end up not being able to. I am not going to judge you either way. I'm just going to say it would be responsible of you and it would be thoughtful of you to consider those kind of things when going into a relationship. So that whenever we get to a point like this in the Whites relationship, where they have chosen each other fully, they have said their vows to each other, and they've decided that they are each other's person, they are the emergency contact, till death do them part, then we have to let them be who they are. Violence against anybody, physical violence, unwarranted, that's not in the capacity of self-defense, is illegal. So, we could deal with that accordingly. But if we're going to go down that path now, make sure that all parties involved are appropriately punished. I don't think we really want to go that route. And I'm not a libertarian or anything, but I do believe in limited government involvement in personal relationships in the household. I don't like having the government's hand in marriage or raising children, any of those kind of things. So that is something that if we are going to have limited interaction from the government, then we have to accept responsibility for ourselves and our families and the dynamics of our relationships. I think that Dana White is doing that, and I haven't seen any statements from his wife. I would assume that her silence means everything, because you don't see any divorce papers or anything being signed. You don't see anything like that, at least not now. Who knows? We'll see as the story develops. But as it is right now, I actually agree with Dana White. I think that the public backlash that he's received has been punishment enough, and I do believe that if he were to be suspended from his position in the UFC, that that would be to the company's detriment. Whether or not people care about that or not, I don't know, man. I can't save him from the machine. I can't save him from the Matrix, oh no. But once they get your grips on you, man, that's why I keep it all private. Keep that stuff private, man. Don't argue with your girl in public, because people don't care. They're very nosy and they will intervene without knowing even part of the story and try and actually use legal authority to manipulate and change your life based off of their interpretation of your experiences. Something to be mindful of, man. Have a good evening.